And we continue to cover that breaking news from Bradley, where there was an accident involving a World War II aircraft, a B-17 bomber. 22 News reporter Sydney Snow is live at Bradley International Airport with everything we know so far.
It's a pretty scary sight here at Bradley International Airport. We do know that a World War II aircraft has crashed. I'm going to step out of the shot so you can see exactly what's going on here right now. NBC Connecticut is reporting that 3 people have been injured in this crash. And as you can see, there are several fire trucks and ambulances. You can still see some smoke. There was earlier smoke and fire that was really high up in the area, but that has died down. But there have been a few more. We have been able to see a few more big billows of smoke and flames coming from that crash site.
22 News has live team coverage right now. Let's go to 22 News reporter Tamara Sakarsik, who's also at Bradley International Airport. Tamara?
We're inside of the terminal at Bradley International Airport, where, as you can see, there are hundreds of passengers behind me. They are all stranded this morning. We just found out over the loudspeaker moments ago that they have canceled all flights in and out of Bradley International Airport except for one single flight to Orlando later this evening. I'm actually joined here by a UMass professor, John, who's on his way to Portland, Oregon. John, you were on the shuttle on your way to the airport. What happened?
Well, I heard rumors at the shuttle office that there had been a plane crash or a fire. And as we took the shuttle bus, then you could see the black smoke coming out. I got here, I was the last person to get to the baggage area thinking I'd get my bag put in, and then they said TSA shut down everything. And so we're going to get rebooked, I guess. No flights today. I was supposed to give a paper tomorrow, so I hope I make it in time for that. But we'll see what Delta does to, rebook things. Obviously not their fault. The plane crash is not that.
John, when you were on the shuttle and you turned around and you saw all of that smoke, what were your first thoughts?
Well, I had also heard it was next to some propane tanks, and so there could have been a larger explosion, which may still come. We'll see. Obviously, the moment I saw that, I thought, well, this is not going to happen today.
And you were telling me earlier that when you first got here, there weren't that many people, but what's happened over the past hour or so? Yeah,
I was the last 20 minutes. But I was alone in that line at Delta, and now you can see there's about 60 people. TSA had maybe 15 people waiting when I looked over, and now it's out the door, but now they're sending them away. Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck to you, John. Thank you so much for talking to us. We hope you can rebook your flight. So once again, as you can see behind me, I'll take a step out of the way. All of these people are now stranded here at Bradley International Airport after that plane crashed on one of the runways here. All of these people will have to rebook their flights for tomorrow, except for that one single flight that's heading to Orlando. We'll make sure to stay here for you this afternoon, and we'll bring you updates on air, online, and on our 22 News mobile app.
The Hartford Courant is reporting that 2 people are dead. 22 News reporter Taylor Knight's live in East Granby with the latest. Taylor?
The Hartford Courant is reporting that 2 people have died in this accident. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see what is going on here. You can see that there is still lots of flashing lights in this area, still a big emergency response here on the runway. There are fire trucks and ambulances on the runway. This is runway 6 that you're looking at, according to the FAA. The smoke has cleared now, but when we first arrived here around 11 o'clock, it was still coming up from the runway, and we are at the end of the runway on Route 20 at the Connecticut DOT garage. Bradley International Airport has confirmed that this was a World War II aircraft involved in the accident this morning. It is still an active fire and rescue operation, they say. According to Bradley, the airport is closed while this is all going on. Flights are being diverted to Boston, and no flights will be coming in or out of Bradley until tomorrow, according to the airport.
As we started this newscast, Nick Bannon had an interesting take on this while looking at the information from FlightAware. He was able to track what this airplane actually did in the air before it went down. Nick?
Yeah, FlightAware is a website many consumers use to figure out where the plane they're looking for is coming from, the plane that they're usually going to take. And if you you can use that website to track where loved ones' planes are. So that's what it's typically used for. But in this particular case, you can look at very specific information about a plane's path, its speed, its altitude or height above the ground. And FlightAware.com is able to give us some of that information. First of all, what we know from that site, and of course we're waiting for official confirmation, is that the takeoff of this plane was at 9:48. It took off runway 6. Now, the runway number is associated with the degree that the runway is pointing. 0 would be due north. 6 is 60 degrees to the right of north. So the plane was taking off, as it were, heading north and east. And then minutes after or seconds after takeoff, potentially, it started making an immediate right and was down 5 minutes later, falling at 750 feet per minute. We're now going to go to a news conference looking for new information about what happened here.
Connecticut Airport Authority. We operate Bradley Airport. As you're aware, there was a very unfortunate accident at the airport today. I want to put right out a telephone number for any families that believe they had folks on the aircraft to contact State Police Communications at 860-685-8190, and they will do their best to provide information. I'm joined by the Governor as well as Commissioner Ravala. You'll be hearing from them shortly. Just want to give some brief information about what occurred here today. We had a B-17, that's a vintage World War II aircraft that's operated by the Collings Foundation, took off on runway 6 at approximately 9:45 this morning. At about 9:50, 5 minutes into the flight, the aircraft indicated to the tower that they were experiencing some type of problem with the aircraft. We did observe that the aircraft was not gaining altitude. The aircraft attempted to return to the runway. It circled around the airport, but unfortunately, upon touchdown, the aircraft obviously lost control, struck what's known as our de-icing facility here. Those are tanks that contain de-icing fluid, as well as a maintenance facility associated with that facility. That accident, the actual crash, occurred at 9:54 a.m. The airport was immediately closed at that time as all of our fire rescue apparatus responded, as well as our mutual aid here to the airport. For safety reasons, we had to keep the airport closed at that point. We are anticipating at this point that we will reopen the airport with one runway at about 1:30 today. So we'll be operating off of runway 33 at the airport. We intend to keep the accident runway closed for this time. There are numerous cancellations, as you can imagine, and there will be cancellations throughout the rest of the day.
Bradley Tower to all responding vehicles, no matter where you are, proceed to the craft via the quickest way available.
A horrific crash at Bradley International Airport today. Multiple people were killed when a vintage airplane crashed on the runway. We have live team coverage tonight with the very latest information from investigators. We begin tonight at 6 with continuing coverage of breaking news. 7 people now were killed after a plane crashed at Bradley International Airport this morning.
The World War II era bomber crashed during an aborted takeoff. 22 News has been covering live team coverage all day long for you, and we begin with Sydney Snow. Sydney, you got to the airport shortly after that plane crashed around 10 this morning.
I'm here inside the Sheraton Hotel attached to Bradley International Airport, and here in one of the ballrooms is actually a media briefing room, and we're awaiting a press conference that's supposed to start at any minute with NTSB to get a little bit more information about what happened here today. When we arrived around 10:30, it really was a frightening sight. There were ambulances and fire trucks, smoke. It really was a scary scene here. We now know that 7 people were killed in the crash and 6 were injured. Today's flight of a B-17 Flying Fortress was part of the Wings of Freedom tour. 10 passengers had paid to take this flight, and there were 3 crew members. 1 worker was injured on the ground when the plane crashed into a de-icing facility. The B-17 alerted air traffic control that they were having a problem within minutes of takeoff. The plane was in the air for only about 5 minutes when they attempted to turn back and land at Bradley. Multiple agencies are involved in this investigation.
The FBI is here, National NTSB, the FAA is on scene, Homeland Security is on scene. The Connecticut State Police will be doing, assisting NTSB with crash reconstruction and data as much as we can offer assistance on.
The airport was closed immediately after the crash. No flights could come in or out of Bradley International Airport until one runway reopened at 1:30 this afternoon. And as you can imagine, there were significant delays and cancellations earlier today. The NTSB is leading this investigation. They're trying to find out exactly what went wrong. And like I said, we are awaiting a press conference at any minute now. So stay with us and we'll bring you more information as it becomes available. Live in Windsor Loch, Sydney Snow, 22 News.
This morning's crash triggered a mass casualty response at Hartford Hospital.
22 News reporter Haley Crumbleholm tells us what the hospital is saying about the conditions of those survivors.
Reports are now saying that 7 people were killed when that plane went down just behind me here at Bradley Airport. And now we are learning some more about the people that did survive that crash. We now know that one of the survivors was a member of the Connecticut Air National Guard, and 2 survivors were part of the Simsbury Fire Department here in Connecticut. Now, of those people injured, Hartford Hospital says 6 were taken to their level 1 trauma center. And they said 3 of those people that arrived were in critical condition. And the hospital said they were notified by emergency dispatch that the crash had happened, and they were able to launch their mass casualty protocol. They called in all available trauma surgeons and opened up operating rooms. And in addition to those 3 patients that were in critical condition, the hospital received 2 people who had moderate injuries and 1 person with minimal trauma. Doctors could not give specifics on the patient's injuries, but spoke generally about what kinds of trauma a crash like this can cause, including burns, broken bones, and internal injuries. The hospital said they had no idea how many patients to expect and prepared well over 100 members of their staff.
We notified emergency medicine, trauma surgery, the ORs, the blood bank, neurosurgery, orthopedics. We notified our colleagues at both Children's Hospital and the Bone and Joint Institute. We had plenty of ORs on hold, ready to go, each with a team ready to take a patient.
We know that 2 victims did suffer burns in that crash. Once stabilized, they will be transferred to a burn unit in a hospital in Bridgeport. And Hartford Hospital said that they are trying to notify family members of those that they are treating. I believe 3 hospitals all did receive patients from that crash. As we get more information on who these survivors are, we will bring that to you on air and online at WWLP.com. Live at Bradley Airport, Haley Crumbleholm, 22 News.
And many people heard about the crash as they were driving to the airport, but decided to keep going in hopes that their flights wouldn't be canceled.
22 News anchor Don Shipman is live at Bradley. Don, many of those passengers talked to you about their confusion about their flight status.
Barry, Ciara, good evening. Yeah, their respective apps were telling them that their flights were on time, so they kept going. They made their way to the airport, and that's when they learned that their flights were canceled. Earlier today in the terminal, this is what it looked like, filled with passengers waiting to learn more information about their flights. Many of them heard about the plane crash as they were driving to the airport, but they simply stayed the course. They hadn't heard from their flight, so they kept going. But once they got here, they realized that their flights were canceled. Others told 22 News that they were already through TSA, their bags already checked.
We got to kind of scramble to figure out how to, get to Sacramento. We've got a couple of things scheduled that are time sensitive, so we'll have to wait and see.
We'll go home. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive. Once we can get our bags out and the car back out, and then just come back tomorrow morning, probably.
And we heard that from a lot of people today. And back here live tonight, you can see TSA. Everything's moving pretty smoothly. It's actually pretty quiet here at the airport. And from what I understand, it usually is this time of day, especially here on a Wednesday. As for flights in and out of here, I've talked to a number of passengers this afternoon and this evening, and they say only one person actually said that their flight was delayed, and that was just by an hour. So everything is A-OK right now. Live here at Bradley International Airport, Don Shipman, 22 News.
We're also learning new information about the airplane that crashed today. It was a B-17, a historical World War II aircraft that was part of the Wings of Freedom tour, sponsored by the Collings Foundation.
The Collings Foundation is an educational nonprofit based in Stowe, Massachusetts. And you're looking at video of another B-17. Connecticut's governor said the B-17 that crashed today was one of 18 still registered to fly in the United States.
The plane that crashed today was named the 909 in honor of another B-17 of the same name that had successfully completed 140 missions during World War II. The Collings Foundation released a statement saying that their thoughts and prayers are with those who are on board that flight. They said they are fully cooperating with the investigation. This is live video from Bradley International Airport, where the NTSB is providing an update on this morning's crash.
To those who lost loved ones in this tragic event. For those who were injured, we wish a speedy and full recovery. The NTSB arrived on scene at about 4 p.m. this afternoon, and we began to assess the scene. We will be collecting perishable evidence over the next hours and days as we begin our investigation. And again, we just arrived on scene, but our mission is to determine what happened, why it happened, and to prevent it from happening again.
We have a timeline of the events from the dramatic day. The World War II B-17 bomber took off at 9:45 this morning. 5 minutes into the flight, they made contact with the tower with a technical issue. The plane wasn't gaining altitude, and the pilot made a sharp turn to try and make it back to the runway. At 9:55, the plane lost control, crashing into the airport's de-icing facility. The airport reopened this afternoon. 22 News reporter Haley Crumbleholm is live in Windsor Locks outside the airport with the latest on this crash.
Now, there aren't too many planes taking off at this time of night, but I'm right outside of one of the runways here at Bradley Airport, and they have reopened. But as of right now, runway 6, where that crash took place, is still closed as the NTSB continues to investigate.
Bradley with an emergency on the field near the fuel depot near FIS. B-17 has crashed.
Jennifer Homendy with the National Transportation Safety Board said just 5 minutes after taking off, the B-17 radioed back to Bradley with a problem.
We know that the crew circled back to runway 6 and attempted to land on runway 6. They impacted the instrument landing system stanchions. The plane veered to the right, crossed over a grassy area, crossed over the taxiway, and impacted a de-icing facility.
As officials work to finish notifying all of the family members of those killed, James Ravella, Commissioner for Emergency Services for the state of Connecticut, said people on the ground and even some of the plane's passengers helped get survivors out.
There's a story unfolding about a very courageous individual that went towards the plane and assisted folks in getting out. There's also some stories that will unfold later on about folks that were on that plane that were able to open a hatch and assist others in leaving. Those will all start to come out as we learn more about it.
While the NTSB works to find the cause of the crash, Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal said this World War II era B-17 plane isn't the only one still flying. Blumenthal said 17 others are still in the air, including one set to fly at Westfield Barnes Regional Airport next week.
The question is there a concern about other B-17s that are operating right now? It's too early in the investigation to know that.
The company operating that Westfield flight did post on Facebook today saying they were very sorry to hear about the crash and they are still gathering information. And the NTSB said when they do determine an issue to be occurring across a certain type of aircraft, they will issue an urgent safety recommendation. Live at Bradley Airport, Haley Crumbleholm, 22 News.